everyone. It's a nice Wednesday morning, and it's time for our weekly dose of Rise Up, Shape Up. I am Clarissa, your host for today, streaming live from the city of Manila. On behalf of the Philippine Sports Commission Women in Sports, welcome to the fourth episode of Rise Up, Shape Up. Let us know where you are watching from by commenting your location down below. As we all know, the Philippine Sports Commission is responsible for developing athletic excellence, producing formidable national athletes. But behind the hard work and success of our athletes are diligent and motivating coaches. Coaches are equally important in building a culture of national athletic excellence as they play an important role in nurturing discipline, focus, mastery, and strategy in our athletes. Our athletes' successes are their successes as well. So, to acknowledge our coaches' contribution to our country's sports and athletic excellence, today's episode will be all about them. This morning, we will feature two of our dedicated coaches, Coach Purita Joy Hongculado Marino and Coach Len Escoliante. But before we get to know more about them, let's hear from the Oversight Commissioner on Women in Sports, Celia H. Kiram.
Over the years, the Philippine Sports Commission has shown its commitment to developing globally competitive athletes to bring recognition to the country. We know that the success in producing high-performing athletes is made possible to the huge contribution of our beloved coaches and trainers. The diligence and dedication they give in athletic development should not go unnoticed. As we say, behind every successful athlete is a great coach and trainer. We, at the Philippine Sports Commission, believe that training alone is not sufficient to produce elite athletes. Mentorship by quality coaches matters as well. This is the reason the Philippine Sports Institute has intensified the coaching development program because we believe that the way to an excellent and competitive pool of athletic talent is through strategic and competent coaches. In today's episode of Rise Up, Shape Up, we put the spotlight on the country's coaches and trainers, celebrating their influence and impact on athletes' development. To our dear coaches and trainers, we value your hard work. May your vigor in honing our country's national athletes and future competitors transcend the digital screens today to inspire our audience and urge them to rise above the day-to-day challenge. Good morning, everyone, and may you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Commissioner Kiram, for your inspiring message. Truly, our coaches are very instrumental in the growth of the sporting culture in our country. We salute you. Up next, we have the President and Managing Director of Otsuka Solar Philippines Incorporated, the manufacturer of Pocari Sweat Philippines, our sponsor. Let us all welcome Mr. Kohei Oyamada.
Hello everyone, I am Kohei Oyamada from Pocari Sweat Philippines. Thank you very much to PSC Chairman Mr. William Ramirez, Commissioner Ms. Celia Kairam, and the Board of Commissioners of Philippine Sports Commissions for providing us a great opportunity to support PSC Women in Sports program. As an official drink of Philippine Sports Commissions, Pocari Sweat has been supporting many PSG events since last year. Though we are under pandemic, regardless physical or virtual, we can manage our activities and learn a lot from each PSG program. I hope all of attendees today can get many insights and do hope we can reactivate all the physical activities in the future. See you soon. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Oyamada. We truly appreciate the continued support of Pocari Sweat and all the programs of the Philippine Sports Commission, especially here in Rise Up, Shape Up. Now, on to the next segment of our program. Our next guests will surely inspire you to aim for excellence in whatever that you do, so tell your friends to tune in. Making way for the success of the Philippine Canoe Kayak Dragging Boat Federation is their head coach, Len Escoliante. The team of paddlers under her training earned medals for the country in the 30th Southeast Asian Games and numerous world championships. She is a level 3 international coach and an international technical official. Let's learn a thing or two from her on paddling forward to success as she shares her journey as a coach. Let's give a big hand to Coach Len.
Magandang araw po sa kanilang lahat. Ako po si Leonora Len Escoliante. Tubong Tacloban na rin po ako pero ipinanganak po ako sa Talalora, Western Samar. Nagsimula po ako maglaro nung high school ako sa Tacloban, sa Leyte Colleges, hanggang sa nung naglalaro po ako ng palarong pambansa sa Tacloban, na-discover po ako ng isang coach from National Capital Region, which is si Coach Rick Reyes. So, nung naglalaro po ako doon, after kong mag-compete, inalok niya po ako kung gusto ko raw pong maglaro sa Manila. Isasama daw po nila ako, tapos bibigyan po ako ng scholarship, pati po allowance. So, pinag-isipan ko po yun hanggang sa nagpaalam ako sa nanay ko. That time, nasa 17 years old pa lang ako noon, going to 18. At medyo hesitant din akong sumama noon kasi mahirapan kasi hindi ako marunong magluto, hindi ako marunong maglaba. Pero kahit pa paano, grinab ko po yung opportunity kasi nanay ko lang po yung kasama ko, wala na kasi yung tatay ko that time. So, nung nasa PUP na po ako nag-aaral, after 2 years, pinag-try out po naman nila ako ng volleyball sa national team. Sa magandang opportunity po naman nabigay sa akin dahil nakapasa po ako, nakuha po ako sa national team. Nung nasa national team na po ako, nag-first SEA Games ako dito sa Pilipinas noong 1991. That time, 21 years old pa lang ako. Nakakamit po kami ng bronze medal ang women's volleyball team. Okay. So, noong 1993 po, nag-SEA Games din po kami sa Singapore. Nag-gold po yung women's natin. Since then, hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin po na-break yung record na yun ng women's national team nang makakuha tayo ng gold sa women's volleyball. Nakakuha po ako ng special award that time, yung best setter nung nag-champion kami. Hanggang nagtuloy-tuloy po ako maglaro ng volleyball. At habang nag-aaral po ako sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines, natapos ko po yung Bachelor in Physical Education, no? And then nag-major po ako ng PE, and then nag-masteral po ako, masteral degree in Physical Education also in Pamantasan ng Manila. Nagtuloy-tuloy po yung paglalaro ko ng volleyball hanggang sa 1995 SEA Games sa Chiang Mai, Thailand. Nakakuha rin po kami doon ng silver. For political reason, I stopped playing volleyball. Then I shift, after that year, I shift into kayak. Kasi that time, ang kayak dito sa Pilipinas is bago lang. So, isa ako sa mga pioneering na naglaro ng kayak dito sa Pilipinas. Kung mapapansin po ninyo, nung unang panahon, itong floodway na to, halos 10 lang yung mga bahay nito. 1998, halos mabibilang mo yung mga bahay na mga nandito. Tapos walang ilaw. Pag ginagabi kami mag-paddling dito, nakakatakot na bumalik doon sa bridge. Wala pa yung Barkadahan Bridge. Puro palang bangka ang nagtatransport sa mga tao para tumawid papunta rito sa kabilang ilog. Well, naging maganda naman yung umpisa ko sa kayak dahil for 2 years naming training, nag-compete kami sa Myanmar sa first Southeast Asian Championship. Doon po, nakakuha pa ako ng 2 silvers kaagad, yung single ko at saka yung doubles. And then, I competed Asian Championship sa Tehran, Iran. Yung single 1,000 meters ko nung 2001, nakakuha rin po ako ng bronze medal. Then, since na kulang ang mga manlalaro sa kayak, that time, at ang coaches namin hindi naman pa ganun ka-train din para mag-coach. Inalok po ako ng presidente namin na kung po pwede mag-playing coach na lang po ako. So yun po, nagsimula po ako maging playing coach noong 2003 at nagsimula rin ako mag-recruit ng mga atleta. In short, nung nagsimula ako mag-coach, inumpisan ko yung mas gusto kong i-train yung mga bata. So from range 9 to 14 years old, yun po yung train ko. Hanggang sa lumalaki na po sila, sila na yung magiging senior athletes po natin.
Ako po si Rosalyn Isgara. Nag-start po ako maging player na 9 years old. Na-discover po ako ni Coach Len na pumunta po ako dito, nag-try out po ako. Then, na-inspire po ako sa mga nagtitraining po dito, nakikita ko po sila. Then, gusto ko po, tumatak po sa isip ko na someday gusto ko maging ganyan sila, gusto ko ganyan yung ma-achieve ko. Then, gusto ko din ma-represent yung Philippine team sa ibang bansa. Then, pinagtiyagaan po kami ni Coach Len na kahit bata pa po kami. Binigyan niya po kami ng time makapag-training. Nung 9 years old pa lang po ako. Araw-araw po akong pupunta dito umaga at hapon para po mapakita po kay Coach Len na dito po ako. Kasi nakikita pa din po namin na dedicated po siya sa ginagawa namin. Ang na-achieve ko po sa bilang atleta ay nakasali po ako sa 2014 World Championship. Nakakuha po ako may ng gold medal and bronze. 5 gold, 2 silver, 3 bronze po atay. Nagpapasalamat po ako kay Coach Len dahil siya po yun na yung tumayo bilang pangalawang nanay namin sa team. At dahil siya po yung laging nag-guide sa amin. Dahil siya po yung lagi po namin kasama. Napakatyaga po ni Coach Len magturo sa amin.
Ako po si OJ Fuentes from Cebu. Nagsimula ako, 9 years old, sa Cebu. Ako lang kasi maiiwan nun kasi magbabakasyon sila mama, tsaka sila ate. So, pinasama ako sa mga kapatid ko pumunta rito sa Manila, sa Taytay nga. Tapos, doon kami tumira kay Antelen. So, pinasubok ako ni Antelen sa Kalukaya. Then, nung nagtitraining ako, simulan nung 9 years old ako, sabi niya, pinapili niya ako na kung mag-i-stay ba ako or babalik ako ng Cebu. Sabi ko, mag-i-stay ako na mag-training dito sa Kalukaya. So, simula 9 years old, training kami ng training. Then, first game ko sa Singapore 2014, yun yung Southeast Asian Junior Championship. So, yun yung nakuha kong first gold medals and isang silvers. Yun yung first competition ko, international. Then, sumunod na years, World Championship and SEA Games. May first SEA Games ko, Singapore 2014, may nakuha akong dalawang bronze. Yun yung first SEA Games ko. Kasama ko yung ka-doubles ko na si Hermie Macaranas. Okay, si Coach Len, as a coach, hindi lang talaga siya coach para sa amin. Kumbaga, simula bata pa kasi kami, siya na yung naging magulang na rin namin. Siya yung nagdidisiplina sa amin. Siya yung kung nagtatama ng mga mali namin. Ganun. Pagdating sa training, stricto talaga siya. Wala siyang pinipiling favoritism. Ganun. Kung mali ka talaga. Kailangan kang tama.
Hello po, ako po si Leren Ligasa, 19 years old. Pumasok po ako dito, 15 years old na. Bago po ako pumasok dito, nagpa-clinic po si Coach Len sa probinsya po namin. And then po, nagpalaro po, and then luckily po, nakuha po, and then kinausap niya po yung mga nanalo po na kung willing po ba daw kaming sumama po dito sa Manila para mag-try ng Dragon Boat Camp. Ako naman po, na-inspire po ako sa mga sinasabi po ni Coach Len. Dahil po kay Coach Len, nandito po ako ngayon at nagpapasalamat po ako sa kanya at na narating ko po yung kinatitigan ko po ngayon. And then, si Coach Len po bilang isang tao, coach, para na po siyang pangalawang magulang po sa amin. And then, siya po, sobrang bait po talaga ni Coach Len, talagang galitin. Si Coach Len po kasi bilang coach, sobrang strict po niya talaga pagdating sa training. Dapat po talaga perfect. Pag nasa ka na po sa training, dapat focus po. Huwag ka po maglaro-laro kasi training po talaga. Kung training po talaga, yun po talaga. And nagpapasalamat din po kami kasi yun po yung strategy niya para mag-improve po pa.
My name is Hermin Morana, Tubong Pangasinan. Lumaki po ako dito sa Taytay Rizal. Tuwing may misda po kami. Kasi malapit lang po yung training site na to. Doon po sa bahay namin. Around 500 meters lang po yung mga layo. So yun, lagi po nakikita, lagi po sila nagkakarera dito sa ilog na to. So parang nakakaingit kasi total nagsasagwan din naman po ako. Bakit? Parang kasi sa to pang mayaman, syempre mahirap lang kami. Hindi ko naman alam hindi ko ma-imagine nung pumasok na ako nung dito na Basta ang akala ko, kasi yung coach pa na nakikita ko, parang may foreigner, tapos naka-speedboat sila, which is yung mga mayayaman lang po yung makakagamit o makakapagsaguan. Yung time na yun, parang wala sa isip ko na makasama. Yung hindi ko pa kasi nangangalakal ako, nag-ano kami ng isda, tapos yung di namin afford yung makabili ng ganyang bangka, ganun. Tapos, hirap pa talaga ng buhay namin nun. So, yun. Ayun, nung nag-first year po ako, nakita ko, nag-open tryouts po dito. So, yun. Naingit ako sa mga kagaya niyan, nila Rose yan, mga yan. Kasi parang, nakikita ko yan. Tapos yun, nagka-tryout sila. Tapos ako, sakay-sakay ako ng bangka ng pangingisda. Naingit ako. So, nagpasama ako sa klase ko na kasama rin nag-tryouts. Nagpasama ako. Gabi po yun wala pa ako, hindi pa ako gumagamit ng puwat po. Kasi lumaki po ako sa kalsada na hindi naman, suportado pa rin po ng magulang. Pero, iba lang po yung ugali na talagang yung lagi kasama yung magulang na natuturuan. Iba po kami So, yun, hanggang sa nakarating ako kay Coach Len ng gabi. Doon ako sinama ng kaklase ko. Kasi siya nakapag-tryouts na, tapos ako di pa. Gusto ko mag-tryout. Sinama niya ako. Parang ang hirap makipagharap sa kanila kasi sino ba naman ako, tapos kakausapin nila ako ng ganyan. So yun, kinurik lahat nila ng salita ko hanggang sa pinabalik nila ako kinabukasan. So ako naman po, porsigid. Kaya maaga pa lang, hindi pa bumangat yung araw, nandito na po para mag-training, mag-tryout sa kanila. So yun po, hindi ko nakalain na tatagal, magkakaroon ng improvement, tapos ayun, hindi ko alam ba't pinapakuha ko ng mga ganitong yun pala, kukuha na po pala ng passport, lalabas na po na ibang bansa, ayun, nakakatuwa. So ayun, sa tulong lang din po talaga ni Coach Len, kasi lahat po talaga ng mga sakripisyo niya, kasi hindi po basta-basta hindi ko po basta-basta mararating yung gano'n pagka wala kang taong sumusuporta sa'yo. Walang taong tumitingin sa'yo kung ano magiging posibilidad, magiging ka in the future. Walang mangyari sa'yo ganito pag walang taong nakapaligid sa'yo. So yun, si Coach Len yung naging pangalawang magulang ko din. So number 1, dito po pala talaga sa Kayak. Nung edad kong 16 years old, doon pa lang, panalo na po ako. Ang dahil ko, tuwa na po ako kasi, pero kahit wala akong maiuwi, yung mga yung makarating ka na ibang bansa, ayun, unang labas ko, 16 years old po ako. Nakarating po ako ng Indonesia. First gold medal ko po yun na lumabas ng bansa, tapos first na labas mo, may medal ka agad. Gold medalist po kami sa Dragon Boat. And then, nasundan po yun ng 2017, 2011, 2012, 2013, SEA Games naman po sa Myanmar, which is kung saan po ako first na single event po na na kanukaya single po. Hindi ko akalain mag-medal ako kasi mga kalaban ko po sobrang lalaki. So gawa rin po sa pagtitrain sa akin coach din, kaya yun, nangyari na nakapag-medal po tayo. Sa World Championship naman po 2014, pumasok po tayo sa Dragon Boat na nagtala po tayo ng 5 golds and 3 silver sa Poznan, Poland po. Ayun, so ang dami ko na pong nakuha ang achievements. So bibigay ko na lang po yung pinaka biggest achievements ko nung World Championship po namin sa Moscow. Nag-World Champion po kami doon, tapos sa Amerika nag-World Championship din po kami. And then ito yung pinaka-latest po yung SEA Games po. Kung saan po ginanap yung SEA Games dito po sa Pilipinas. 2019. Yan. Nakapag ano po ako ng first gold medals po namin ng SEA Games dito po sa kano-kayak dito po sa Pilipinas. So and then may silver po kami sa doubles. Tapos silver ko po sa single, and then dalawang bronze po sa Dragon Boat. Ayun po. So ayun, napakasaya kasi lahat ng mga pagsakripisyo po namin lahat, lalo si Coach din, kasi una sa lahat ang ulo po nitong lahat, yung pinaka nasa taas nito, yung utak ng ginagawa po namin, yun na kay Coach din po talaga.
Thank you, Coach Len, for sharing your journey. Now, do you want to know more about paddling? Coach Len will now give us the basic steps in paddling.
Welcome po. Ito po yung training site namin. Ito yung Canoe Kayak and Dragon Boat training site dito sa Taytay Rizal, Floodway, no? Pasensya na po kasi isa rin po kami sa naapektuhan ng Ulysses na bagyo. Kung makikita nyo, nasira po yung training site namin, hanggang doon po yan, nawarak na po ng Ulysses. Tapos yung tubig, abot na po rito. Dapat ang tubig po, andun lang, doon po sa may speedboat na yun, nakatamaran, hanggang doon lang dapat po ang tubig. So, umapaw po at pasalamat kami na hindi rin umabot pa dito sa gym namin. Kasi dito po nag-exercise yung mga atleta natin, nagwa-warm up nung tuyo po ito. So, gusto ko lang i-introduce po yung iba't ibang klase ng boats na ginagamit ng mga atleta natin. Ito yung kayak single. Karamihan po ng tao, ang alam nilang kayak is yung makikita nyo sa resort. Ang tawag po doon is recreational kayak. Para sa amin, ito yung kayak. Ito yung racing kayak. Single po ito. So, double-bladed po ang ginagamit na paddle. Sige, mamaya, kukuha ako ng paddle. Tapos, ito naman, yung katabi niya, ito naman yung racing canoe single. Okay. So, itong kayak, nasa 12 kilos ito, maximum. Itong racing canoe, nasa 14 kilos. Okay. So, ito naman, makikita nyo, kayak din ito, pero ito yung kayak ng mga bata. Ang pwede lang sumakay dito is 45 kilos pababa. Ito yung kayak kids. So ito, pag nag-clinic kami, ito yung ginagamit natin. So, ang makikita mo naman yan na nakataob na yan naman yung canoe slalom na boat. Okay? And then yung nandun na marami na nakatihaya, yun yung mga dragon boat natin. Meron tayong 10-seaters, meron tayong 20-seaters na boat. And then, itong blue na to, ito naman yung doubles na canoe. So, ang doubles na canoe, nasa 18 kilos naman po yung bigat niyan. Ayun, hindi tayo makapunta doon kasi may tubig, no? At madumi madumi. At yung ilog dapat kasi nandyan lang, sa dulo lang nitong floaters na to, ilog yan. Kasi itong floaters na to, nandun yan sa labas. Wala yan dapat dito. Paddle niya is double-bladed. Sige nga, Lea, mag-balance ka nga dyan. May balance po yan, ha? Hindi yan basta-basta nasasakyan. Huwag kang tataw, madumi.
Kaya na lang.
Yan. Okay, so, yan po. Kung magbabalance ka, yan lang ang gagawin. Taas ka ng kamay. Yan. Okay, so mapapansin nyo, sit-in kayak siya. Okay? Sige, Lay, abante ka rito. This is a canoe single. So, ang canoe single kasi is one blade lang siya. No? Para siya ng dragon boat, one blade lang. Yan. Pero nakaluhod yung isang paa. Nakaluhod. Okay? So, kung kanan ka sa kano. Kung kaliwete ka, doon ka sa kaliwa. Di ka parehas ng kayak, both arms nagpapadel, no? Yan. So, ang kano is belong to asymmetric. Okay, sa dragon boat event naman, we have two kinds of paddle. Pag nag-start ka pa lang, dapat wood paddle ka muna. Okay? Pag medyo mapunta ka na, magaling ka na mag-control, hindi na sumasayad yung shaft mo sa bangka, pwede ka na lumipat sa carbon paddle. Okay? So, ito, magbe-base ka dito, ang height nito, magbe-base ka kung nakaupo ka sa bangka mo. Paano? Halimbawa, okay, upo ka. Pag nakaupo kayo sa bangka mo, hindi tayo makapunta doon kasi mahaba eh. Kunwari, nakaupo ka sa bangka mo, ang sukat ng paddle, dapat grip mo yung shaft. Yan. Yan yung tamang sukat. Yan. Uupo ka sa bangka ng dragon boat, tapos straight mo yung arms mo. Kung kaliwete ka sa kaliwa. Okay? Yan yung tamang sukat ng dragon boat. Kasi, dapat, ang isang atleta sa paddling, kanya-kanya ng paddle. Oo. Hindi pwedeng palit-palit kasi magkakaiba kayo ng sukat eh. Diba? So, ito, medyo mabigat, pero pag carbon na ang ano nyo, itong carbon, magaan na lang to eh. Mas mabigat pa ba nga yung isang lata ng sardinas? Sobrang light. Sa kano, yung specification muna ng paddle natin, as you can see, we have a blade, no? Sa canoe. This is the blade, and this is the tip of the blade, and this is the shaft. This is the neck, and this is the T. Okay? So, ang sukat naman ng canoe, pag paddler ka, kaparehas ng dragon boat, may kanya-kanyang sukat. Dito naman, ilalagay mo siya sa floor, tapos nakapaa ka lang. Kailangan, ang paddle mo, tapat sa eyebrow. Yun ang tamang sukat. Dapat. Okay. Pag gusto mo ng mas mataas, dito naman sa forehead, sa noo. Okay? So, dalawa lang yan. Either level sa eyebrow or dito sa forehead. Yan ang tamang sukat ng canoe paddle kung mag-i-start kayo. Then, yung boat is, this is the single. Kung mapansin mo rin, may kanya-kanyang knee pads ang bawat atleta. So, may sarili kang knee pads dapat, kasi dapat sukat sa'yo yung tuhod dito. No? And then yung paddle, sukat din sa'yo. Then, ilalagay mo yan siya sa loob. Tapos, after training, kailangan mo rin siyang patuyuin. So sa boat naman ng canoe, we have 3 types of boat. We have single, maximum length nito is 520 centimeters. And then, minimum weight dapat is only 14 kilos. Yun yung sa competition. Okay? After canoe single, meron tayong canoe doubles. Ang canoe doubles naman is, ang maximum length niya is 650 centimeters. Then, 20 kilos ang maximum na weight. And then, we have also C4. Pag C4, yun na, yung mahaba, yung apatan, maximum length niya is 900 centimeters. Then, maximum weight is 30 kilos. Okay? 30 kilos. Yun sa apatan. Okay? Then, sa kayak naman, sa kayak, meron tayong double-bladed paddle sa kayak. Okay? So, dapat, ang sukat ng kayak, para masabi mo na para sukat sa'yo, kukunin mo yung center ng kayak, ilalagay mo siya dito sa ulo mo, and then mag-a-angle ka ng 45 degrees. Ito, maiksi ito sa akin, no? Kasi dapat, at least 1 fist from here, tsaka ka doon hawak, yun ang tamang sukat. 1 fist from the neck of the paddle, tsaka nandito ang sukat mo. So ito, maiksi ito sa akin. Anyway, pag magiging atleta ka ng kayak, dapat may sarili kang paddle. So this is 2-bladed paddle. So sa specification naman ng boat niya, ang kayak naman is 650 yung maximum length, tapos 12 kilos naman yung 520 yung single, 650 yung doubles, then 1,100 yung K4. May apatan din kasi tayo na kayak eh. Tapos doon sa minimum weight niya naman, ang single is 12, ang doubles is 18, and then the K4 is 30 kilos. So yun po. Kailangan watch out tayo doon sa mga sukat at saka sa timbang, dahil pagdating sa competition, chine-check po yan. Kahit panalo ka na, pagdating sa boat control, i-boat control kayo, pag hindi pumasa yung body weight at saka weight ng bangka at saka length ng bangka, madi-disqualified pa rin kayo. Lastly, sa dragon boat, yung paddle ng dragon boat, sabi ko nga, dalawang klase, isang kahoy at saka isang carbon. So, hindi nagkakalayo sila hindi sila nagkakalayo ng specification ng canoe at saka dragon boat. Magkaiba lang sila ng size kung papansinin mo. So, parehas sila may T, parehas may shaft, parehas may neck, parehas sila may blade, no? Parehas sila may tip of the blade. Ang pagkakaiba lang nila is yung laki ng size ng dragon boat. So, ito yung dragon boat paddle. Isang wood paddle at isang carbon paddle. And then, sa boat naman, we have 3 kinds of boat this time ng dragon boat. Meron tayong D4, Dragon Boat 4, 4 ang sakay. And then, meron tayong 10-seaters Dragon Boat. And then, yung tinatawag natin na standard Dragon Boat is the 20-seaters Dragon Boat plus the drummer and the steersman. The Philippine Canoe and Kayak Federation, we are member and under of the International Canoe Federation. So yung mga events namin na nilalaro is yung kayak, kayak slalom, kayak sprint, canoe slalom, and then dragon boat. We have also canoe polo. We have also outrigger canoe. We have stand-up paddling. It's under also our federation. And then we have marathon kayak. Okay? So that's under us. And then yung rodeo, canoe sailing. So lahat po ng paddling forward, paddling going to its direction, it's under the International Canoe Federation. So yun po yung mga events namin. Depende na lang po pagka host country ka kung anong distance ang pwede mong laruin. Pero sa Olympic event, sa Olympic po, every 4 years nagbabago po ang mga events nila. So depende po sa napag-usapan ng executive body ng International Federation kung ano yung mga lalaruin doon pagdating na sa Olympics. Sa ngayon, sa Olympics, we have 12 events in canoe and kayak. And we have 4 events in slalom. So, ang under po ng IOC na events na events for canoe and kayak is only the kayak and the canoe, and then canoe slalom ang Olympic events sa ngayon.
Rise up and shape up. Rise up and shape up. Rise up and shape up. Rise up and shape up.
Thank you for teaching us Paddling 101. That definitely requires a lot of upper body strength. Give me a thumbs up if you got interested in trying paddling or rowing. Don't forget to comment down below if you have questions for Coach Len. To moderate today's discussion, I'd like to call on Commissioner Celia H. Kiran.
Hi, Coach Len.
Hi, ma'am.
Thank you for-
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today's episode. May mga question kami para sa iyo, Coach, ha? Ang
Opo.
number 1 is, ano ba yung malaking achievement mo as a coach?
Sa akin po, sa 17 years experience ko as a coach, ang pinaka best achievement na masasabi ko is yung from grassroots, no? From nothing, like 9 years old pa lang sila, hanggang sa napa-champion mo sila sa SEA Games at saka sa World Championship ng Dragon Boat. Yun po yung best achievement ko. Yung mag-aantay ka talaga ng bunga.
Wow, hindi mo ba sasabihin na ikaw ay international coach na? Hindi ba yun isa sa mga one of your greatest achievement?
Kasi po ano yun eh, sa studies yun eh. Pero yung development po talaga kasi it takes time, ma'am, di ba? It takes like 13 years kang nag-antay from 9 years old hanggang maging 22 years old sila na nag-gold na po sila, na ikaw talaga nag-handle. Yun po talaga masabi ko na pag may tiyaga pala, may nilaga.
Meron ka bang example dyan na masasabi?
Opo, yung mga nag-gold na natin nitong SEA Games, sila Hermie Macaranas at saka sila OJ Fuentes, lahat po na nag-bronze natin sa Dragon Boat, galing po yun sa grassroots natin. Nag-start po yun ng mga 9 years old at saka 12 years old. At saka si Hermie po, Macaranas, nag-gold medalist na natin. Nag-start po sa akin yun ng 12 years old. Si OJ naman na nag-silver is nag-start ng 9 years old.
Ang alam ko rin, meron kayong Olympic hopefuls sa sa canoe kayak.
Opo, sa canoe kayak po, sana po next year matuloy na at mawala na itong pandemic. Matuloy na po yung qualifying namin. Yung hopeful sana natin ay si Hermie Macaranas at si OJ Fuentes na mag-qualify.
Oh, that's great, no? It's one of your greatest achievement, Coach Len. And
Yan,
the second,
yan po.
ano naman yung mga challenges mo na naranasan bilang coach?
Number 1 po, at this point of time, yung challenges, yung pandemic po. At saka, siyempre, hindi ka makapag full-time ng training. Tapos, malalaman mo yung mga kalaban mo talagang nagte-training na ng todo. Tayo dito, very control yung movement natin at hindi nakakalabas, lalo na yung mga underage na mga atleta natin po. And then every time na magtatakbo sila, mahirap po kasi may face mask na magtatakbo at saka face shield, no? So doon po ako nahihirapan ngayon sa training. Maganda rin sana kung sa probinsya medyo maluwang-luwang. Pero wala po kaming magawa kasi yun po talaga ang ruling natin ng IATF natin. So, nagkakaroon na lang kami po ng mga alternative workout, like binibigyan ko na lang sila sa kanilang bahay, kung ano po yung, tinatanong ko sila kung anong meron kayo dyan, anong meron kayong equipment, or kung wala, maglagay doon kayo sa bed ninyo, kung double deck, doon kayo mag-pull ups, whatever, and then push up, kahit anong exercise po.
Oh, hindi ka nag-iisa, Coach Len. Yan ang mga ng ating sports challenges ng ating mga sports yung ating mga coaches ngayon sa pagti-training na gagawin nilang training, no? And one last question. Anong pwede mong ibahagi sa ating mga viewers at saka doon sa ating mga aspiring coaches?
Una po, yung gusto maging coach. Oo. Unang-una po, kailangan lang po talaga sa coach is yung pagtsatsaga, no? And then kasi tayo yung yung mga magulang during sa training, sometimes mas higit pa yung samahan natin sa atleta natin, lalo na pagka nasa training camp sila. So halos 3 months, whole day, pati gabi, magkakasama kayo. Ang payo ko lang talaga, ang pagiging coach ay hindi lang basta masabi mo lang na marunong kang magturo. Kailangan din po is marunong ka rin kang gumabay sa mga player, lalo na pag mga underage po, na mailayo natin sila sa mga masasamang bisyo, at pati po yung tamang pagkain nila at pag-inom. No, kailangan din po natin silang maturuan. Kasi hindi lang basta natin na sila napapalakas, kailangan ma-ready rin natin sila for future nila sa pakikisalamuha sa tao.
Oh, that's great, Coach Len. Oh, marami pa kaming questions sa inyo, pero meron tayong time, no? Na napaka-exce.
Opo.
So, maraming salamat, Coach Len. And back to you, Clarissa.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kiram and Coach Len. That was truly inspiring. It is indeed very challenging to be a coach. Such big shoes to fill in. It's not an easy job to be a mentor. Okay, so moving on to our next speaker. Archery is a sport that requires focus, proper stance, and an eye for the aim. Our next speaker has instilled all these in her archers as she helps them gear up for meets and tournaments. She is the chair of the Archery Development Committee for Southeast Asian Archery Federation for 2020 to 2023. She was a Philippine archery team member from 1992 to 2005 and won the SEA Games 2001 gold medal for recurve women individual category. She finished her International Coaching Enrichment Certificate program with honors at the School of Sports Management, University of Delaware. She is a graduate of BS Psychology and is a registered nurse. Let us all welcome the national coach for archery, Coach Joy Marino.
Good morning sa mga nanonood ng Rise Up Shape Up episode 4, and maraming salamat po sa PSC for inviting me today in this program. So the first one that I will share is my athlete to coach journey. So how and where I was discovered as an athlete and my achievements as an athlete and going on of becoming a coach in the national team. So growing up, I had much inclination to street games in the neighborhood. Just about anything I can just kung may mga takbuhan, mga larong kalye, sumasali po ako. And pag Saturdays, I went with my father to play tennis at the local club, but didn't really had a formal training on tennis. During high school, sa St. Paul's, mahilig po ako sa softball. Pero since in ano lang kami, within the school lang yung laro namin. So, pagdating ko ng Siliman sa college days ko po, I attended sa varsity team ng volleyball. But before the summer before college, ang una ko pong formal training ng sports ay yung pagsali namin sa Milo Best Center sa Basketball Efficiency Scientific Training Center sa Manila. I think it's Vilago to dati na. So, yun yung formal na sports na sinalian ko. Kaso lang, when we came home with my brother from Manila, pagdating sa Siliman, wala palang basketball varsity women's team. So to do away with swimming sa basic PE class, ang way lang na hindi ako makasali ng PE was to join the varsity team. So ang pinili ko po, volleyball. So without any ng volleyball, nag-try out ako, nag-training ako, then got into the team sa varsity ng Siliman. So, so the whole 4 years ko sa Siliman University, I was with the volleyball varsity team. At the same time, I was a working student at the university's PE and athletics department. So, naka-enjoy ako ng athletic scholarship at the same time, yung earnings ko po as a working student, yun po yung nagbabayad ng tuition ko sa whole 4 years ko ng BS Psychology. So I have to maintain a good balance between my school and sports para hindi ako matanggal doon sa team at saka I don't need to ask for my parents to pay for my school fees. So But just when I was about to graduate sa college, gusto ko talagang pumasok sa national team. Pero since involved ako ng team sports, volleyball, then nag-open din yung basketball women at that time. Pero team sports pa rin. So nahirap, parang sa isip ko, mahirap pumasok sa national team pag team sports. So ang archery range sa Siliman was just near the gym, kung saan ako palaging nagsastanday kasi working student nga ako at the same time sa varsity team. So, sumali ako ng varsity through my first coach, the late Mr. Bob Flores. So, siya yung nag-supply ko ng equipment. Then, he trained me. I remember the date so much, October 3, 1990. So, nag-train siya sa akin for 1 month para isali niya ako doon sa Manila ng selection for the National Training Pool, which was held November the next month. So, out of 25 participants sa women's recurve archery, 12 doon ang kukunin para sa training pool. So, I placed 10th on the rank. So, nakapasok po ako sa training pool. Then, sumali ako ng training sa national pool. Doon kami sa Los Baños para nanuhan yun sa 1991 SEA Games. Pero hindi po ako top 4 lang kasi yung kukunin para mag-represent sa team. So, ang first participation ko sa national team came in 1992 and to the 1993 Southeast Asian Games kung saan kami nanalo ng silver sa women's team event. After doon, the next year was more sa Asian Games na sa Thailand, sa Hiroshima, Japan, 1994 Asian Games. So after ng Japan Asian Games, I took a respite from the team, some time off from competition para ma-refocus yung sarili ko. Then I came back sa team mga 1998 na doon, that time, may mga, if you see the slide kung saan itong mga early years in archery, maraming nag-evolve yung archery form ko dito from first to ano to, ah, so yung time na involved ako sa archery, sumasali kami ng national tournaments. So some tournaments are good na nananalo ako ng medals, and also sa mga international events nananalo din ako ng medals. And the parang achievement ko doon was the 2001 Southeast Asian Games na kung saan ako nanalo ng individual gold sa women's recurve. Dito naman sa amin, since after nung time na yun, nag-stop na naman ako sa archery. But in 2011, sometime in 2011, 2012, yung Federation ng Archery, may event dito sa Dumaguete. So I was called by one official, then pinapili ako if I am pinapabalik ako sa archery, either as a coach, as an official, or maglaro ulit. So I said, hindi ko na ata kaya maglaro. So nung time na yun, may program pa ang PSC ng regional, may mga regional coaches pa from parts of Luzon, then Visayas and Mindanao. So isa ako doon sa nakuha for the Visayas region na coaching staff. So partly I have to find a location where I can have my archery range, parang archery center. So across the street sa bahay namin, may bakanting lote sa relative ko. So yun yung dinevelop ko as an archery center. So tinawag ko na lang as Dumaguete Archery Center, and pinaregister ko sa National Federation namin sa World Archery Philippines. So dito sa center namin, may mga archers na galing sa ibang lugar, from Ormoc. Itong pinsan ko na nagko-compound galing sa Hong Kong to. So minsan pag umuwi siya dito siya nagte-train. Then also helping me around sa mga training dito sa range, usually yung nasa coaching staff din ng national team si Coach Clint Sayo. So we do trainings, we can do trainings in the evening also kasi may ilaw yung range. And we cater to yung mga elementary, yung basic na archery talaga yung tuturo namin din. Pag may mga tournaments sa national level tournaments, sumasali kami kung saan yung venue. So sa WAP ngayon, sa present NSA, dinadala po through our Secretary General, Architect Rosendo Sombrio, ang ginagawa po niya na programa, dinadala po niya sa iba-ibang lugar yung national events like in Ormoc, in Coronadal, parang may Baguio at before, parang years ago, then dito sa Dumaguete. So, also dito sa range ko, so may recreational archery din at saka yung mga teachers ng DepEd na tinuturuan ko ng basic skills para doon in preparation sa mga city meet, regional meet at saka palarong pambansa. Mga beginners ko sa archery, usually elementary and high school. Then, minsan nanalo ng medal sa mga meets, sa palarong pambansa, and anong tawag dito sa mga World Archery Philippines organized tournament. Then sa Ormoc, may mga programs kasi din yung ibang LGUs na minsan tinatap nila ang mga national team coaches na mag-train sa kanila. Ang pinaka-regular, parang yearly na, parang 3 years na, yung team ng Ormoc. So, me and Coach Clint are the ones training the Ormoc team para sa regional meet onto the palarong pambansa. Dito naman sa range ko, I have 2 archers na nag-start sa akin, and mga magkapatid si Pia and Abby Bidaure. So they are members of the national team this year. So si Pia started in 2017 Southeast Asian Games. Si Abby naman nung last year na 2019 SEA Games sa Clark. So, yung mga pictures ko dito sa 2019 2018 Asian Games, so ako yung sinama para as one of the coaching staff together sa Secretary General namin, si Sir Sombrio. And I was with Miss Pagles sa Youth Olympic Games. Dito sa kabilang side ng picture, si Coach Len Yan sa Kanukayak. And yung youth team, may nagpadala din ang PSC noong 2017 sa World Archery Youth Championship. So, yung youth team noon, 17 below to na mga archers, nag-place ng 4th doon sa women's team. Then last year, yung sa Madrid naman, yung mga junior, yung 20 below and 17 below, dalawang teams po ito. So the best finish doon sa 2017 sa Argentina was beating Korea in the team event. So kasi syempre powerhouse yung Korea, na-beat ng 3 young archers natin. And also sa first round din, na-beat din nila yung Italy. So part ng journey ko from athlete to becoming a coach, I was invited to during the parang i-revise yung manual sa World Archery Headquarters, i-revise yung coaching manual na yung published by World Archery Federation sa Lausanne, Switzerland. So in-invite ako mag-apply if I can qualify. Then they hired me para maging collaborator and editor doon sa manual na i-revise. So the parang ang stretch ng work was 6 months to 8 months, but I have to report to Switzerland for 7 days para doon sa parang final ng editing ng manual. So that was the first time I visited. I was able to go to the headquarters of World Archery. So I was working with the heads sa development committee ng World Archery Federation at that time. Then si Mr. Pascal, but he already retired parang October this year. And also with Mr. Ken Bierman, yung taga-UK na din siya, former coach din, naging ng World Archery Development Committee. So, part din ng ko sa pagiging coach, there was yearly yung IC International Coaching Enrichment Certificate programs, a yearly Olympic Solidarity program na through POC. So, nag-apply po ako noong 2016 and got accepted to be in the ICECP batch 2015-2016. So, there were a lot to learn during that time sa program na yun kasi I was, ang mga namin, ang mga instructors namin, yung mga authors ng books na Sports Club Management and the Long-Term Athlete Development. Then, doon din, this was held in the University of Delaware in the USA. Mga 1 month ako nag-stay doon, including na doon yung internship ko doon sa training center, US Training Center ng archery. So I was mentored by coaches from the US. I was mentored by the coaches from the US and to complete my study. Then yung graduation ng program was held in Switzerland again. So that was the second time I was there. In the final presentation and graduation held at the headquarters of the ANOC, the Association of National Olympic Committees. So I graduated with honors sa program na yon with a project entry-level coaching program in selected cities in the Philippines. So as you see, pati yung project paper has to be presented na para siyang book, then you have to defend it pagdating doon sa Switzerland para makagraduate from the program. So this is a yearly program. I don't know if may mga nag-apply pa after sa akin, but it will be selected. The selection will go through University of Delaware and the U.S. Olympic Committee, then to the Olympic Solidarity, and kung saan kang IF na belong. So yung nag-select sa akin mismo, yung sa IF din namin may approval na isali ako doon sa program na yun. Then when I came back from the final presentation and graduation sa Switzerland, so I have to report back sa PSC, sa POC, I mean, so that time si Comkiram, nasa POC board pa, yun yung katabi ko nung nag-present ako ng kung anong nangyari doon sa Switzerland sa final presentation and graduation. Kaya natuwa naman sila doon na nag-honor po ako. So, as we go to the parang belief ko na ang coaching is a work in progress. So as a coach, you have to find your purpose, why you are into coaching. Dapat may ano ba talaga yung rason na nandyan ka. Are you there to yung parang help develop your athletes as better individuals, athletes, and as better individuals din. And also, what you can contribute in the development of the person you are training. Then, kasama na rin doon sa coaching, as a coach on my side, dapat ma-recognize din na if kailangan mo ng tulong from other coaches who are more para sa development ng isang athlete, if hindi mo na siya ma-train at a level na kailangan niya, tapos somebody can train better, dapat may consultation na magagawin among coaches para doon. Then, dapat responsible because coaching carries the expectation that activities will be beneficial to the athletes. And also, part ng development as a coach, dapat ma-enhance ang knowledge and skills through research and learning projects din. Then, aware ka rin as a coach sa mga everyday pressures ng tinitrain mo. Lalo na ngayon, especially ngayon na pandemic. So, meron nag-a-attend pa rin ng school yung mga athletes. So, nag-online training. So, kailangan ma-understand din yan ng coach kung ano yung mga other aspects in life ng isang atleta. And lastly, ang best interest ng athlete and the organization that you are working, ang mo talaga, parang top mo doon sa pagiging coach mo. So, kung ano yung organization like the NSA, so you have to work hand in hand, mag-collaborate with the officials of the NSA for the development of the sport in our country. So, thank you po. And thank you for having me here sa episode ng Rise Up and Shape Up.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you, Coach Joy, for sharing your journey with our viewers. For those who are aspiring to become archers, here's a demo of the basic steps. Please watch the video.
The shooting process. To build a stable foundation, we will start with a stance. Archer's feet should be shoulder width apart and must be parallel to the shooting line. The archer's body weight distribution on the feet should be more on the balls of the feet where the body's balance receptors are located. Next thing to check on is the back of the archer. Let the archer rotate her pelvis. This is what we call the pelvic tilt. The goal is to create a flat back and avoid the deep curvature of the back that has been more common with beginner archers when they start drawing the bow. As we go to the bow hand position and placement of the 3 fingers on the string. Knuckles and the wrist must be straight and the fingers on the string must be in the hooking position. It must not curl once the archer starts to draw the bow. We move now to the draw and the pre-draw. Let the archer raise both arms together. The bow arm must be nice and straight towards the target, while on the string arm side, let the archer pull the bow until the string reaches the facial reference points. The three notable points are the tip of the nose, the chin, and the anchor point. When drawing, you should also check that the archer is using the scapula to give a more stable shot upon release up to the follow-through. The only movement at the point of release is the string hand will travel slightly backward. The whole body and bow should be in line with the target when aiming. This is the basic bow. The parts are the handle riser, this blue part, the pair of limbs, upper and the lower limb, the string, the sight, and the arrow rest. For the arrow, the parts are the knob, the fletches, the shaft, and the point. Archer's accessories include the chest guard, the arm guard, the sling, and the finger tap.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Coach Joy, for reminding us to always aim high. We'd like to call back Commissioner Kiram for a quick Q&A.
Hi, Coach Joy.
Hello po, Ma'am Kiram. Good morning po. How are you po?
We're fine. How about you? How is the Dumaguete?
Okay naman po kami dito, Ma'am. Very good po.
Okay, we're so happy, Coach Joy, that you shared your journey to our audience para ma-inspire naman sila,
Salamat po sa inyo. Napili niyo po ako para mag-share ng po dito sa program niyo po na Women in Sports po.
Yeah, because we know that you are a seasoned and an elite coach, kaya isa ka sa aming napili to share your journey. Anyway, may mga questions kami, for you. And one of this is, ano ba yung mga greatest moment mo as a coach?
Greatest moment, so marami yun. Marami yun ko. Well, sa coaching, syempre, I do basic archery sa mga yung parang grassroots development program dito sa LGU namin. So, I cater to public school students na interesado matuto mag-archery. So, doon pa lang, parang na yan na pag na-impart ko po yung kaalaman ko po sa archery, at saka nakuha ng atleta na tinuruan ko, and mag-develop siya, mag-progress yung skills niya, then mag-attend ng mga tournaments and manalo ng medal. It will take time, but at least the process is, it's one of the moments na maganda. Also, syempre, with the national team, syempre pag manalo ng mga medal, kasi syempre maano rin yung expectation pagdating na sa mga elite athletes. So every time na sasali ng mga tournament sa international, ang nakikita kasi namin, based on our mga perspective namin, ang dami kasi ng mga yung sa international na hindi nila naiintindihan paano para makarating lang sa gold medal match. Yung mga elimination rounds, minsan pagdating sa mga bracketing sa pairing doon sa qualification round to the elimination round, minsan magtapat yung Philippines against Philippines. So minus na yung, kasi one of them, one lang doon ang pwedeng mag-proceed to the next ano. So doon sa level na yun, syempre kung manalo ng medal, malaking ano na rin yun. Malaking achievement na yung mga moments, isa sa mga moments. Then also, project ko po dito sa Dumaguete, which I run my own archery range. Syempre may mga improvements na. Then last weekend we attended, maraming nag-attend under the World Archery Philippine Federation. So there were almost more than 80 archers in the Philippines attended the tournament na online siya. It's organized by the International Federation doon sa Switzerland. Then it was run for the weekend. That was the first round. The next stage will happen in December 19 and 20. So marami na namang nag-submit ng entries under po sa Philippines. So yun yung mga nakakatuwa din minsan pag may mga progress na maganda.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment, Coach Joy.
Yeah, galing syempre ko malaki din yung support na binibigay ng PSC sa archery ko. So we're very happy for that.
Oh, we're also happy for that, you know. And the second question, ano ba ang mga challenges mo as a coach?
Challenges. Sometimes I set it aside po. Parang, sige, kung challenging to na task, parang I will find ways na maano ko siya, ma-overcome. Pero yung mga basic minsan, syempre, pag doon ka magtuturo sa mga younger generation, sa mga grassroots, ang ano doon is, syempre, paano ka mag-provide ng equipment para sa kanila. Okay. Because kahit nag-i-invest ako ng konting equipment na para sa basic archery na practice sessions, pagdating na mag-improve yung archer, doon din nag-i-improve din yung presyo ng equipment. So kung galing sa wooden bow na at least more or less 15 to 20,000, pagdating doon sa intermediate level, kung magko-compete na doon papunta ng regional meet, so kailangan yung equipment din niya babagay doon sa mga distance na i-shoot niya. So when it comes to the arrows, may kamahalan din. So lalo na sa bow, ganun din. Much more kung mag-proceed na sa elite level na mag-attend na ng qualifying tournament para sa national team. So yun yung mga isang challenge doon. Yun, one, paano ako maka-provide sa mga bata na gustong matuto. So I had one, then two. So okay lang. Pero ngayon, lalo na ngayon, meron ding kahit ngayon pandemic, may mga programs po akong in-arrange dito na per 2 hours. So I can accommodate at least one per every 2 hours. So yun nga, kasi ang progression ng bawat archer, kunyari, you're teaching 4 at the same time, iba-iba yung progression nila. So kung mabilis tong isa, kailangan mo nang palitan ng equipment. So yun, sa equipment, yun yung challenging. Then, okay naman po. Minsan ata nakakalimutan ko na yung ibang challenges. Maybe I have, ko na yung ways paano ma-overcome. So, hindi ko masyadong naaalala yung iba po.
So, kayang-kaya mo yan, Coach Joy, yung mga challenges na yan. Alam ko.
Yeah, of course, with the support of SB.
Okay. And one last question, Coach Joy. Anong pwede mo ma-advise sa ating mga aspiring coaches?
Ma-advise ko po, syempre kahit kahit may mga alam na tayo sa sports natin, hindi rin, like for me, I cannot claim that I know everything. So it's best na magtatap ka ng ibang coach to, to help you out. Isa yun na ma-advise ko para din yung development ng archers na tinuturuan nyo, mas lalawak yung Then also, syempre also may mga programs po ako under ng mga DepEd na teachers na yung ina-assign sa archery. So nagte-train din po ako sa mga teachers. Then yun, okay naman po, may progression is din, pero pag they just have to understand also yung mga ng mga athletes, yung kasi syempre mga student athletes to pagdating sa high school, elementary high school. So syempre they have to understand yung balance ng school nila, yung family nila, syempre mga issues din sa sports na sinasalian nila po. So sana maintindihan, hindi yung coach na resulta kaagad yung gustong makuha. Yung parang they have to understand the whole person. Kasi marami ding aspect sa buhay ng isang tao na dapat i-consider. Para rin, it's not just coaching for sport, it's just coaching for life ang pinaka-importante. So, if you want to, parang you have to consider the whole person po. When it comes
Ako,
to
Coach Joy, marami kami natutunan sa iyo, I hope yung mga viewers din natin, marami din natutuhan ngayon, no? Anyway, we love to hear more from you, kaya lang we're constrained by time, no? So, maraming salamat, Coach Joy.
Thank you rin po. Thank you and salamat sa sa Women in Sports na project po. Sinusuportahan niyo po. Yung project.
Thank you, Coach Joy, again. So let me give back the floor to Clarissa.
Thank you for that motivating discussion, Commissioner Kiram and Coach Joy. Before we move on to the next part of our program, we will have a quick game from our event sponsor, Pocari Sweat Philippines, who supports the PSC's programs on sports and fitness and has prepared 3 special gifts to be given away. All you have to do is post a photo of yourself doing physical activity, sweating it out, and shaping it up. Don't forget to caption it with something about hydration and use the hashtags #RiseUpShapeUp and #PocariSweatPhilippines. A sample is flashed on the screens. Entries will only be accepted until November 29, Sunday. Eligible areas to join are Calabarzon, NCR, and nearby areas of Central Luzon. Now, with all the hard work that our coaches are making to help our athletes, how can they take care of themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally? To talk about self-care tips for our dear coaches, we have with us the Associate Professor and Research Director of the College of Human Kinetics of UP Diliman. She is also a member of the Women in Sports Commission of the Philippine Olympic Committee and serves as Executive Board Member of the International Association of PE and Sports for Girls and Women. Let us all welcome Dr. Marisa Ginto.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I'm really excited about our session this morning because we are going to talk about self-care for coaches. We know very well that coaches are always on the lookout for the welfare of their athletes. In fact, it's almost a stigma to talk about self-care for coaches because it's like, who talks about that? No, they're supposed to be caring always for their athletes. But this morning, we are really privileged to be discussing this topic because coaches are people like all of us. So before I begin, I'd like to borrow the analogy of what happens in a plane before we take off and travel. Okay, we always hear the crew talk about how we should place the oxygen mask first on ourselves before helping small children who might need our assistance. This is actually a statement for all those who take care of other people. And I would like to hasten to add that self-care is a moral obligation to those who dare to take care of others. Now, when we also look at our cell phones, we are very sensitive when it is low bat. Okay, we would never want to see our phones at a low bat condition. However, we don't do the same thing to ourselves. No, we always make sure that our phones are fully charged. We would not want to be caught with our phone with a red line there. And yet we don't do the same thing to ourselves. Coaches are always alert, no, when their athletes are performing at an optimum, when they are not at an optimum, but I doubt it if they are doing the same for themselves. So if we are alert with our phones so that we need to charge them all the time, we also need to do the same thing with ourselves, because first of all, we cannot pour out from an empty cup. Therefore, if we are to give of ourselves as coaches and to be effective in the process, we need to take care of ourselves. Self-care is a healthy behavior, and it is important and necessary to our roles as coaches. So it's not just about being technically good, okay, but also to be healthy in body and mind. Now, I mentioned a while ago that talking about self-care is almost a stigma, because self-care is normally associated with being selfish, especially in our culture where being other-oriented is always taken ahead of being self-oriented. So self-care is normally associated with being selfish. But what we're saying here is that self-care is about taking care of me too, not about me first, okay, but me too. So if we are taking care of other people, then we need to include ourselves in that caring. And that caring is also translated as self-compassion. We cannot be compassionate to others, okay, even to our athletes, if we cannot even be kind and compassionate to ourselves. And therefore, when we talk about self-care, not just for mental health, but overall physical health, that is basic in terms of being a good coach. So let me just go through the different areas of self-care. Okay, so we know very well, for instance, that during this pandemic, one of the things that has been disrupted is our daily routine. Prior to the pandemic, everything is actually hurried. Okay, when we wake up in the morning, it's like automatic. We know exactly what we're going to do and how our day is going to be. So part of taking care of ourselves, especially during this very uncertain times, is to have that certainty of our daily routines. Okay, so if we used to wake up and exercise and do our healthy behaviors, physical activity, okay, whether it's walking around or doing our gym exercise, let's do it even in the confines of our homes. So it's very important to make sure that our days are what we call this structured, because coaches and athletes are used to that. Okay, and then of course we need also to ensure that our quality of sleep is taken care of, because during this pandemic we have this notion that we can sleep as long as we want or as late as we want, because we don't have to rush out, for instance, the following day, or rush in coming from somewhere, especially if we're doing online training. Okay, however, disrupted sleep is again one of the indicators of even disrupted health. So therefore, we need to make sure that we attempt to sleep almost at the same time and almost at the same length, and wake up also the next day, and to make sure that we are fully rested. No, it sounds really commonsensical. And what is the connection with mental health? Of course, there is a connection, because even our moods drop if we don't have enough sleep and we become grumpy. That's kind of obvious, but if we do that on a pattern basis, then it's really going to affect our overall mental health. And then, of course, nutrition. We know that very well. No? Individuals who are in the sporting arena are very mindful of their nutrition. However, because we are in this very different times, no, in this pandemic, sometimes that becomes really the the convenient way of eating. Of course, it's always good to be eating at home where healthy foods can be prepared, but we have to be very mindful of what we take in, because that is actually very fundamental to self-care. What we allow our bodies to ingest is actually very primary in our overall physical and mental health. We also know that there are certain types of food that, for example, will deplete our energy faster than we expend it, or foods that actually depress our moods. Okay, so we have to be mindful, for example, in eating a lot of healthy foods, which are basically a lot of fibers, a lot of fruits and vegetables, and of course, avoid all these fatty foods, oily foods. Okay, and for some, really avoid protein in terms of animal fat, especially if you are vegan. Okay, now it's also important for us to connect. Okay, in very difficult times, one of the protectors, okay, protective factors that people will really have to ensure they have access to is connection with people. So if you're with your family and you have access to your friends, of course, no, this is the time. Even if we don't see each other face to face, connect with people. If you need to use your different platforms, you know, whether it's Zoom, it's video chat, or even text, okay, connect with people, okay, because this is very important in terms of taking care of our mental health. However, we also need to caution ourselves against the unregulated use of social media, which is also the same platform where all of the fake news and the overwhelming news of different forms of problems come in. So unregulated use of social media can also be harmful to our health, physically and mentally, especially if we try to scroll before sleeping and hoping to fall asleep. But guess what? When we are facing our screens before sleeping, instead of falling asleep, we will actually be activated because there are so many news there that really alert us and keep us awake. So if we are targeting, for instance, to sleep at 10 o'clock, maybe an hour before, we should already avoid social media and do other things like perhaps read a relaxing book or even read an inspiring film or listen to relaxing music instead of scrolling ourselves in the hope of falling asleep. Okay, so let us not use it as our sleeping mechanism. Okay, and then of course to be also mindful of learning other things apart from what is comfortable to us. So working out our minds, okay, by learning something new, especially now that there are many forms of free courses available online, a lot of free webinars, no? And if these are the things that we could not have done, you know, on a regular season where there is always training, there's traffic, there's traveling, there's a lot of meetings outside. Now, this is the time where we can make advantage and really exercise those neurons. Okay, needless to say that the body as well should be exercised. Now, we take it for granted that just because we were former athletes, for instance, for the coaches who were former athletes, or that because you're dealing with athletes, that we are physically active naturally. Yes, perhaps when we are doing the face-to-face training, but the challenge, okay, nowadays is that we are at home. So if we are not deliberate in terms of our physical activity, then sooner or later, even our mental health might be compromised. So when you talk about physical activity, it's not just gym work, but movement throughout the day. And the recommendation, of course, is to make sure that we break our sitting behavior, which is normally in front of the computer or of the screen, because that's where everything happens nowadays. But to make sure that every hour we alert ourselves so we can stand up, drink water, go up and down the staircase perhaps, and do a little stretching and calisthenics to make a deliberate effort so that we break that sitting syndrome, which of course physicians are now saying as the new form of smoking. Okay, so in the College of Human Kinetics, for instance, we are advocating for the short, okay, intense or intermittent, intentional, okay, physical activities. So that stands for SIPA, okay, SIPA and COVID, which is one of our advocacies in the College of Human Kinetics. And then when we talk also about nurturing our sense of humor. Now, we Pinoys are very good at this. No? The harder the life is, the more jokes really circulate in social media. Now, there is nothing trivial about humor, because humor has been found in research to be a very good character strength that we can nurture in ourselves, so that we can also promote mental health. And together with the sense of humor is the cultivation of a sense of gratitude. So no matter how uncontrollable the things are around us, nurturing the sense of gratitude is a very healthy way to take care also of our mental condition and even our physical health as well. To find things to be thankful about, even when we wake up, to be thankful that we can see, that we can walk, and before sleeping, to be thankful for perhaps being able to eat during the day, be able to connect with people, or even just read a good book or watch a new film. To find things to be thankful for is actually very, very healthy. And then as mentioned a while ago, to practice self-kindness intentionally and deliberately. And as I have been watching in the previous episodes, now we have a very good resource person who talks about mindful movement. So mindfulness is actually something that we can nurture during this time. If we didn't have time before, this is the time to start the practice of deliberate mindfulness, which is actually a quality of one's attention. Okay, so as coaches and athletes, we're very used to focusing on the task. When we talk about mindfulness, we are cultivating that awareness of the present moment to allow ourselves to attend to the moment with kindness and with warmth, okay, with acceptance without judging. And to be able to go through our day mindfully means that we are fully aware of what we are doing, not in a hurry, and not getting stuck with what we were not able to do in the past, of what we will do the next moment, but simply to be in the moment. And that allows our mind to also relax. Okay, and together with that also is the need to cultivate a sense of spirituality. Now, sometimes we think about spirituality as something so far away from health. But guess what? Okay, research also shows that spirituality is correlated with high levels of physical and mental health. For us Filipinos, it's not hard to convince ourselves that our spiritual life also is part of our strength. Okay, so spirituality has actually been identified already as a character strength that we ought to nurture on a daily basis for our overall health. Okay, so when we talk about self-care for coaches, it means the deliberate attention that we give to all of these parts. But however, sometimes we think, naku, Doc Marisa, ang dami naman yan. Well, that's the way it is really if we will optimize our performance as coaches. Even more so because we take care of others. How can we ask our athletes to care for themselves if we cannot even model self-care? Many times, athletes need the permission to take care of themselves because they're not supposed to look weak or to need attention on themselves, like to give themselves time to take off, let's say to relax. So as a coach, one of the best things you can do for your athletes is to practice and model self-care so that it becomes legitimate even to your athletes to be mindful of their self-care. Why? Because most of the time when they push themselves and they don't listen to their bodies, that's when slowly but surely they develop what we call burnout, or they become prone to injury and all sorts of difficulties, okay, in performance. Okay, before you know it, they will show signs of absenteeism, tardiness, or being totally exhausted. Why? There is a lack of self-care. So coaches, okay, it is a moral obligation for us to take care of ourselves. And during this pandemic, in this new normal, we need to include it in our safety behaviors. In the same manner as we do physical distance, washing our hands, wearing the mask, let's add, okay, self-care in that new normal. If there's anything that we learned during this season, it's to take care of ourselves, because self-care is a moral obligation for people who dare to take care of others as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ginto. That was a very enlightening, what do you call this, enlightening topic. And I like how you give so much importance on self-care and on the aspect of leading by example, which is really true, because you would, as a coach, I don't think you would be able to provide a moral high ground if you don't practice it yourself. It's kind of, it has to be walk the talk and practice what you preach. So okay, just a couple of questions. How should a coach or trainer handle things without putting too much pressure on their athletes or trainees? Like how do they, because I'm a believer of gentle parenting, and basically coaches are parental figures for athletes. So how can they go about this?
Okay, first of all, you're right about it, that coaches are like parents. In fact, some parents would say that young athletes would listen more to their coaches than
True.
their parents, di ba? Yan yung isa sa mga hinanakit na mga parents, na ang mga bata daw nakikinig sa kanilang coaches pero sa mga magulang hindi. So that really speaks of the power of coaches in the lives, especially of young athletes. And even in the life of older athletes, not even, let's say, high school, college, or even professional athletes, the effect, okay, and the influence of coaches is far beyond what you would expect, no, from any other figure. So they are a very significant authority figure on the lives of our athletes. Now, when you talk about gentle coaching, there's such a thing, no? Because this is a question of a lot of coaches to me, no? How can they be effective at the same time be compassionate, no? When you're talking about kindness, being gentle, okay, we're all also talking about being compassionate. Well, of course, there is no conflict between these two. I would always say that discipline is most effective when it is preceded by a good relationship. When you have a good relationship with an athlete or even with our own children, it is so easy to discipline. But if you force the discipline at the cost of the relationship, that discipline will only be there when you're watching. The moment
it's not as effective. Yes.
Yes, because it is imposed from the outside. But when there is a relationship, part of disciplining is allowing also the child or the young athlete or even the older athlete to see it as good for himself. Okay, so there's patience in leading that process where the athlete will acknowledge the benefit of the disciplinary action. Okay, and that disciplinary action does not have to be very harsh or unreasonable. Once you have a relationship with a child or with the athlete, you don't have to enforce it in a very harsh way. That is why we always say that coaches must invest in the relationship because the relationship will make the discipline easier. However, if you first approach it with the disciplinary action minus or without any meaningful relationship, then it will gonna be push and pull, and whose authority must be followed at the moment. And normally that's a tug of war, and that will expend so much energy and might even breed resentment or rebellion. Okay, so that's the big picture there. Okay, of course, many of our coaches had been coached the hard way, and they tend to carry over the patterns of coaching that they grew up with. However, more and more as we professionalize coaching, and there are training programs, and there are also research that shows that the importance of building a good and conducive environment, okay, for athletes, then this includes the approaches of coaching. And if they do self-care, then they will be mindful of how they affect others because they also acknowledge how they are.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting how uh, a coach athlete relationship is actually just beyond the playing field. It goes beyond that. It's more of a mentorship relationship. So it is very clear that how a coach is personally will also affect the relationship and the athlete himself. So now my question is, on days when a coach is not her 100%, I mean, we all have good days, we have bad days, or, going through a rough patch in their personal lives, what can a coach do to avoid dragging down the rest of the team with their personal struggles?
Okay, that's a very good topic actually, because again, no, we are not always 100% functional and
Yes.
always in the best mood, okay, to face people. And I see that also in myself. No, for example, as a sports psychologist, I am not all the time, okay, at the height of my functioning, etc. So how do we manage? Anybody, I think, who is in that position where we are in mentoring, coaching, or teaching, or parenting position, first, okay, that is where the self-care comes, is because if we do this on a daily basis, we become aware of our levels of energy, di ba? Low bat ba talaga tayo, kailangan i-charge, di ba? So,
yes,
ano charge natin, dapat ganun din tayo. Hindi dapat natin hinahayaan na ma-low bat tayo, tas saka tayo haharap sa mga athletes natin. So, as we go to training, we need to shift gears and make sure, am I okay? All right? So, that daily practice of mindfulness, being aware of one's condition, to acknowledge if I am well or not well, am I tired or not? No, that daily practice of acknowledging without judging oneself will allow us to access resources that will help ourselves without being apologetic so that we can be more effective to others. However, if we pile up all of these needs and then try to operate as if we don't need any charging or don't need any care, then sooner or later, we're just going to explode perhaps or snap, and before we know it, that we're taking it on our athletes or even on our children. So that daily practice of acknowledging one's condition of the body and the mind. For example, I'm too tired to finish the work tonight. Then that's okay. Forgive ourselves, and perhaps tomorrow I'll just wake up and continue the work instead of forcing it. Or let's say I'm coming from work and I know I had a hard day and I'm gonna face my children, for example, to actually acknowledge that perhaps even as a coach, no, we are not a coach and then a father or a mother separately. We're the same persons, okay? So if it's a difficult day, to be able to shift gears and acknowledge I am tired. I'm going to face my children, but I'm going to take a to take a relaxation break. Perhaps I will go first to the to the comfort room or and wash my face and change to fresh clothes instead of directly what we call this encountering my children. And the same also for our athletes. Before going to training, be aware, how am I right now? My mind, my body, so that if I need to take a form of a break, whether it's a mindful break, some breathing exercises to take a glass of my favorite juice or drink, or to just quiet down myself before facing my team, that is part of self-care. Okay. And that is also part of taking care of athletes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ginto, for that very insightful uh, answer. And I'm just so thankful at how doesn't only teach us how to be mindful coaches, but also mindful parents. So I'm very thankful for this, for the insight and on how to manage, stress and how important self-care is, and that it's not selfish. Actually, it allows you to give more when your tank is full. So thank you so much, because a lot of us feel that it's not right to take care of ourselves, that it's selfish, and what you have just done basically gives us permission to take care of ourselves so that we will be able to give more to others. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again soon. As our episode comes to an end, we'd like to call in our resident mindfulness and meditation coach, co founder of White Space Body and Mind Wellness Studio, Miss Aileen Tupas, for a few minutes of guided meditation on loving kindness.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. And once again, thank you to all of you who've chosen to join us yet again for another episode of Rise Up, Shape Up. So for this particular session, I was invited to lead you through a guided loving kindness practice. So in the mindfulness meditation tradition of which I'm a part, there's a category of practices that are known as cultivation practices. And just as the name implies, they're about cultivating or developing particular attitudes, particular qualities, particular traits, which if we get to express these qualities and these traits much more fully in life, can give us a much richer, more easeful, more gracious, and more joyous experience of life. And so just one thing that I want to highlight as a basic assumption of these practices, they're based on the premise that we can cultivate particular attitudes in the same way that we can develop particular skills. And I really want to spend a bit of time talking about that because many of us implicitly assume that people are born with certain qualities. So we assume that some people are kinder than others. We assume that some people are more grateful than others. We assume that some people are more forgiving than others. And so for many of us, these are qualities that are innate. If we don't have it, then we don't have it. Okay? Now, there's certainly a bit of truth to that idea. We're all born with unique temperaments, and some temperaments make it easier for people to access these qualities with much more ease than others. Okay? But the point is, under this tradition, the idea is that if we invest enough effort, if we undertake these techniques, so to speak, we can learn to access and we can learn to embody and we can learn to express these qualities with greater ease and with greater facility over time. So even if you're someone who doesn't think of themselves as naturally kind, the idea is if you undertake loving kindness practices on a regular basis, you will find that over time it's easier to be kind. Okay. The other thing I'd like to point out about loving kindness practices and cultivation practices in general is that they really are practices in the most ordinary sense of the word. So when I say practice, I mean doing something repeatedly, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't think you're producing results, even if you think that nothing's happening. And in the world of sports, we take that for granted. Athletes know that they have to practice even if they don't feel like it, even if they'd rather just stay in bed. Because the understanding is, if I put in the time, if I put enough effort, if I repeat this behavior, if I do the drills, then it just comes with much more facility to me when I actually need to draw upon these skills. Okay, so the practice that I'm going to be leading you through in a few moments is a loving kindness practice. There are many cultivation practices, but for this one, we're focusing on loving kindness. And there are many ways to do a loving kindness practice. There are traditional ways of doing it, and there are contemporary ways of doing it. So the one that I'm leading you into is a contemporary variation. If we had a bit more time, I'd probably take you through more stages, but since our time together isn't very long, I'm just going to focus on 2 stages. But I will give you a few tips afterwards on how you can get creative, how you can tailor this to your own needs. Okay, so without further ado, let's just set our posture into the correct one or the conducive one for this technique. So whether you're sitting on a chair or you're sitting on the floor, just find a way of carrying yourself that allows you to embody the qualities of dignity and ease. So just allowing your spine to be long, and then just sensing if there are any obvious places of tension or resistance that you can soften and release. Just allowing the shoulders to relax downwards away from the ears. Letting the face be soft. And casting the gaze downwards. Or if you'd like, just closing your eyes altogether. And let's just transition into the practice by being mindful of the breath for 3 rounds. So just breathing in and being aware of the fact that you're breathing in. Breathing out, just being aware that you're breathing out. And just doing that for 2 more cycles of the breath. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, and exhaling. And now for the first part of this loving kindness practice, just bring to mind someone that you love, someone for whom the affection is uncomplicated. It can be a partner, it can be a parent, it can be a child, it can even be a pet. But just bring to mind a being that you love. And as you bring them to mind, just notice how it feels in your body to presence your beloved in your mind. And as you bring this beloved being to mind, begin to think about all the things about them that you love, that you appreciate, that you cherish about them so much. Just taking a few moments to deeply sense the goodness in this being that you love. You can even bring up a favorite memory if that helps. And as you bring their beloved qualities to mind, notice what shifts in your experience. What happens in your body? How does it feel in your stomach? How does it feel in your chest? How does it feel in your throat? And you take some time to sense the goodness in this being that you love. And now imagine that they're right in front of you. And imagine yourself fully expressing to them what it is about them that you appreciate so much. And if it's a pet, just imagine that they can understand your words. Just conveying, just articulating, just expressing as freely as you can what it is about this being that you love, that you appreciate so much. And just sharing it without holding back. Telling them what it is about them that you love. And as you do this, just notice what shifts in your internal experience. How does it feel when you can sense the goodness in the other and express it to them as a gesture of kindness, as a gesture of generosity? And perhaps imagine that they can hear exactly what you're saying. And notice once again how it feels for you when somebody can be the recipient of your kindness. And just taking a few more moments to sense that. And now gently let that go. And we'll move on to the second part of this meditation. Now bring to mind someone that you don't know very well. Someone who's just an acquaintance. Somebody that you see on a regular basis, but maybe you don't even know their name. Maybe it's the doorman of your building, the security guard at your office, or maybe the cashier in your favorite grocery store. And just taking a few moments to reflect on their goodness, even if you don't know them that well. Just being present to the many ways that they might have been of service. Maybe they gave you a smile. Maybe they did their work cheerfully. Just taking a few moments to sense, to be present to the goodness in another being. One who's not so close to you, maybe, but who has the same concerns as you, the same difficulties, maybe the same struggles. And notice once again what changes in your internal experience when you can sense the goodness in another being, even if they're a stranger. Now imagine that you could approach them. Imagine expressing to them, sharing with them what goodness about them that you felt, that you perceived, and just thanking them for it. Just expressing your appreciation without holding back, without embarrassment or fear. just touching base with your own spontaneous, warm-hearted benevolence. And notice what shifts in your inner world when you can express that kindness to another being. When you can sense the goodness in a stranger and express it back to them. Perhaps you can even imagine the looks on their face when they hear what you have to say. And just taking a few more moments to immerse yourself in this felt sense of kindness. And then slowly just letting that go. And just noticing any observations or insights that might have come up for you during this practice. It takes so little for us to be kind, but it does so much for another. And slowly just taking your time. If you happen to have closed your eyes, you can gently open them now. So I did promise to say a few things, just to give you a few pointers. So you can be tremendously creative with a loving kindness practice. If you struggle with being kind to yourself, you can actually include yourself in that meditation by taking a few moments just to sense your own goodness, just taking a few moments to sense what it is about you that you can appreciate, where you've worked hard, where you've succeeded. And, imagining expressing your appreciation towards yourself as if you were a different person. So you can easily incorporate that into a loving kindness practice like this. A more challenging variation of loving kindness is when you include in the practice people who may have hurt you in the past, people who may have done you a bit of injury or harm. And to be completely honest, in the traditional practices, that's really how it goes. You do include the category of the enemy. It's the final stage because it's a little challenging to do. But that's why it's a practice, okay? It's just like lifting weights. You start with the smaller barbells, and as that gets easier, you start lifting heavier barbells. So in the traditional loving kindness practices, we start with easy barbells. We start with the people we love, we start with ourselves, then we graduate to medium barbells, strangers, neutral people, and then we save the heaviest barbells for last. So it is a practice. You don't always feel warm and fluffy and loving when you do it. That's not the point. The point is to put in the time and the effort so that over time you'll notice that it's just much easier to express your kindness and your benevolence to other beings. Okay, so I hope you found it helpful and valuable, and I'm going to turn you back to Clarissa.
Thank you so much, Miss Eileen. Namaste. That was very relaxing indeed. I really look forward to your sessions every week. I will surely rewatch this session for my dose of loving kindness meditation. It's very soothing and comforting during these uncertain times. And on that note, we are now at the end of today's episode. Let us know what you think by answering our feedback form below. Rise Up, Shape Up is brought to you by the Philippine Sports Commission, Women in Sports. We would like to thank our partner, PAGCOR, and of course, our event sponsor, Pocari Sweat Philippines. We'd also like to acknowledge the Philippine Sports Commission Board of Commissioners, Chairman William I. Ramirez, Commissioners Arnold Agustin, Ramon Fernandez, Celia Kiram, and Charles Raymond Maxey. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Rise Up, Shape Up. Don't forget to follow us on our social media channels. Tune in next week as we discuss physical activities for pregnant and postpartum moms. Again, this is your host, Clarissa. Have a marvelous day, everyone. See you.